TikTok is the most downloaded app in the world.
People just can't see enough of TikTok. 1 billion users every month.
There's no question, it is a CCP spy app, a national security threat.
An opportunity to spy on all of us.
This company should be banned. I don't know why they're allowed to operate in the United States.
If you're watching this, then you likely already know what this is. On TikTok, you can scroll endlessly through bite-sized vertical videos served up to you by an algorithm. Sounds harmless enough, right? But all over the world, governments, lawmakers, and even militaries are scrambling to try and protect themselves from this thing. So what has them so frightened about this silly app where teenagers share videos of themselves twerking? Well, to answer that question, we need to know what it is, where it came from, and who has control over it. Unlike most other apps, our story doesn't begin in Silicon Valley, but rather on the other side of the world in China, with a tech entrepreneur named Zhang Yiming. Zhang had a vision. He believed that the world's next breakout social media app would utilize the ever-growing power of computer algorithms. In 2012, he founded the software development company ByteDance, and a few months later, his first app, named Tatiao, exploded onto the Chinese marketplace. It was a news platform that fed its users articles curated for them by an algorithm. Sounds familiar? Having used Tatiao to refine and perfect his algorithm technology, Zhang was ready to take his next step. In September of 2016, the Chinese domestic version of TikTok was released under the name Douyin. China has an incredibly enclosed tech ecosystem, with the vast majority of Western apps being banned there, and a marketplace dominated by their Chinese equivalents. As a result, the majority of their tech innovators are focused inwards on China's internal market. Zhang, however, was different. Over 2017, he began to roll TikTok out to the global market. By purchasing the popular music syncing app Musical.ly and rolling their 200 million pre-existing users into TikTok, he was able to catapult the app forwards. So abroad, everything was going pretty well for Zhang, but back home he was about to experience the full force of Chinese censorship. In April of 2018, the Chinese media regulator ordered him to pull his news app Tatiao because allegedly it held vulgar content and pushed values that were incompatible with Xi Jinping thought. Zhang put out this apology on Weibo, and seriously, it's worth reading this thing. When you do, you get a real sense of the fullest extent and power of Chinese censorship. In it, Zhang writes, "The product has gone astray, posting content that goes against socialist core values. It's all on me. I accept all the punishment since it failed to direct public opinion in the right way." Basically, the Chinese Communist Party wanted Tatiao gone, and that was it. No legal process, no appeals, and as you can tell from this, absolutely no objections. So for Zhang, having had his base in the Chinese marketplace decimated, global expansion of TikTok became not just a target, but the only way for ByteDance to survive. But TikTok didn't just survive, it thrived. At the start of 2023, it had over 1.5 billion users. So that's you all caught up on how it is that TikTok became the social media juggernaut that it is today. But what exactly is it that has everyone so worried? Well, the perceived threats from the app generally fall into one of two categories: propaganda and data security. A big fear around the app is that it could theoretically be used by the Chinese government to both slip pro-Chinese propaganda into Western media diets, as well as subtly suppressing some of the topics that they don't want people seeing. One concept that I've read quite a lot about when researching this piece is the idea of amplifaganda. This is the suggestion that China wouldn't need to create any new propaganda of their own, but by subtly thumbing the scale of what is shared by the algorithm, they can push certain voices to the top in order to fuel division. One of the things that I feel makes TikTok such an opportune platform to do this on is the fact that it's almost entirely algorithm driven. Now, I'm not saying you can't get sucked down an algorithm-fueled misinformation rabbit hole on YouTube, because you absolutely can.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
But at least with YouTube, it's primarily a user-led experience. Sure, there's an algorithm at work, but you may be presented with, say, 10 options on your homepage, and it's for you to choose what you want to watch. But with TikTok, you have no direct control over what's coming up in your feed, other than what you've already fed into the algorithm. This makes it a very powerful tool for anyone who wants to disseminate a certain message out there. So the big question is this actually happening? Well, it's hard to say, given that everyone's experience on the app is by its nature subjective, and how can you ever know what you're not being shown? There is, however, some evidence that the Chinese government is in fact trying to influence the content that is seen on the platform. In July of 2020, emails were leaked showing that an entity of the Chinese government had emailed Head of Government Relations Elizabeth Cantor requesting that an account be set up for them, but that it not be disclosed as a government account. The request was ultimately denied, but Elizabeth Cantor has herself before confirmed that TikTok did in fact suppress sensitive topics with relation to forced labour of Uyghur Muslims. I guess one thing we need to ask ourselves is, do we want to allow the proliferation of an app that may be under the influence of a foreign, often hostile power? I mean, as an example, what do you think are the chances that, for instance, during the Cold War, the West would have allowed a company with close ties to the Soviet Union to be in charge of all their TV broadcasting? That may sound dramatic, but that is close to what's going on here. I think that the main threat is, however, what we're about to talk about next. Okay, I'll be honest, researching this next bit of the story kind of freaked me out a bit. When it comes to privacy, it seems that TikTok is collecting a lot of data on its users. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. The Australian-American group Internet 2.0 got access to the app's source code and found that beyond activity within the app, it's also collecting information on users' contacts, calendars, hard drives, and even your geolocation. So what's happening with all this data? Well, as we discussed, ByteDance is a Chinese company, and therefore it falls under the incredibly pervasive jurisdiction of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, ByteDance will be quick to tell you that all US data is held on servers based in the US and Singapore, that it's not accessible from within China, and besides, even if it was, ByteDance just wouldn't comply with any requests from the CCP. So that's it then, right? Well, there's a lot of reasons to doubt both of those claims. Recently, BuzzFeed got their hands on 80 leaked recordings from internal TikTok meetings, which confirmed that China was routinely able to access data held on US servers. So it seems very likely, at the least, that user data can be accessed from within China. So that's the first excuse gone. And what about the other claim that they just simply wouldn't comply with any request to hand over data? Well, as we saw from Zhang's response to having a huge portion of his Chinese business shut down overnight, the Communist Party is not something that you say no to. According to the 2016 China Internet Security Law, any company based within China will be compelled to share data with the CCP that is deemed to be of relevance to national security. So the idea that they would simply say no is a fiction. They can't say no. So let's say that the Chinese government gets their hands on this information. What's the danger? Well, to answer that, it's worth having a look at a recent similar case study that shows how powerful these giant datasets can be. In the wake of the 2016 American presidential election and the Brexit referendum, it came to light that a company called Cambridge Analytica had been amassing massive quantities of data on millions of citizens in both countries through permissions granted by a game on Facebook. They were then using this data to disseminate micro-targeted political ads through Facebook at select groups of key individuals in order to influence the outcome of the vote. Let's just visualize for a second how this may work. Imagine a random voter, call her Francine. Francine is a US citizen who's female, aged 27, lives in an urban area and is African American. On Facebook in the last year, she has liked posts and groups covering the topics of LGBT and women's rights, veganism and latte foam art. From these 8 data points and simple statistical reasoning, it's very easy to predict that there is a very high probability that Francine will be voting Democrat in the 2024 election. And TikTok doesn't just have 8 data points, it has thousands. Every swipe, dislike, and as we saw earlier, even your activity outside of the app is recorded. So, We have our massive data set and our predictive algorithm. If I'm a bad guy, what do I do next? We'll just take a look.
The algorithm placed voters into one of 8 categories. Most likely to turn out was the base, core Trump on his side, core Clinton on hers. Those least likely to vote were marked as deadbeats and then disengaged for both sides. In the middle were the voters who might go either way and were open to persuasion. But also crucial were these 2 segments. On his side, they were called GOTV, get out the vote, and on the other, deterrence, voters who might be encouraged not to vote. The campaign would then create ads that could be targeted at the people in these groups through Facebook and other platforms.
Now, not that it makes it much better, but Cambridge Analytica were a British company. But what is being created here with TikTok is a body of data on individuals of the same scale as what Cambridge Analytica were using, but likely accessible by a foreign power. That seems like a very dangerous situation indeed. So now the only thing left to ask is, what do we do next? Right. Well, all of that may have sounded pretty bleak, but I think it's worth clarifying that I don't believe that somewhere in China there's some great moustache being twirled, and that TikTok was explicitly created for the purpose of undermining Western democracy. ByteDance is a private company that are focused on expansion and profit the same way any company would be. But that doesn't mean, however, that they aren't under a huge amount of influence from the Chinese government, and that there isn't a security risk here that should be taken seriously. Now, in a rare event from the US government, it seems that there might actually be some consensus here. It's a rapidly changing situation, but as I was writing the first draft of this late last year, the Senate unanimously voted to ban TikTok from all government devices, and on top of this, Republican Senator Marco Rubio announced bipartisan legislation for a total ban of TikTok. Wow, unanimously? I mean, the Senate can't even unanimously agree that interracial marriage is okay, so I don't believe it. I mean, literally, I'm amazed. So is there another way, possibly, that this can be dealt with? Well, the Trump administration did begin the process of trying to force a sale of TikTok to either Microsoft or Oracle. Okay, now you're about to see a track record first here, but I agree with Donald Trump. And the thing is, we've seen something like this before. In 2020, Grindr was forced to be sold to a US-based group after the US Foreign Investment Commission expressed concerns regarding security over its Chinese ownership. It seems to me that forcing a sale of TikTok may be a more viable solution than an outright ban. And lastly, what is there that you can do as a user? Well, the average user of TikTok likely won't face any threat from the app. And I mean, yes, I am aware of the irony, I am also on TikTok. There are, however, a few things that you can do to keep yourself safe. You have to make sure that the app's permissions are set to ones that you are happy with. It's also worth not using TikTok for discussing any personal or sensitive information. Hey there, before you go, I just want to let you know about some of the exciting things I've got coming up on the track record. In May, I'm going to be going to South Korea and Taiwan to film some more travel documentaries. This is the first time that I've done a travel film since my films on Cyprus and Greece over a year ago, so I'm really excited to get back out on the road. I've developed a lot as a filmmaker since then, and I'm going to be going even bigger on this one, making a total of 4 videos, so I can't wait to share all of that with you. If you want to see those when they come out, then please do consider subscribing, and I'll link my latest travel films in the description so you can see those too.